very simple deal. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this and go like this. You know, the majority of you that slice the ball in your full swing, you're slicing it with your putting stroke as well, and it's a very common thing. Welcome to Golf Fix Extra. Hope you got a lot out of that Phil Mickelson stuff, the putting stuff. It helps him. I know it's going to help you. And then that little chipping and pitching stuff that we showed. And trust me when I tell you, I get a lot of emails every single week about how to pitch and chip the ball properly. And what Phil Mickelson showed you in that is exactly how to do it. Keep that club face open. Keep the hands forward of the head. And I promise what will happen is you'll start making crisp contact and have control over that ball when it lands on the green. So pay attention to that stuff. And now let's get to some of the emails. This is Dan in North Idaho. I would like to thank you for all your great instruction regarding the mechanics of the golf swing. I am retired and don't have any great expectations about my game, but you have made my game less frustrating and I'm greatly improving. That's great to hear, and I'm glad about that, Dan. I've always wondered why the driver has a curved surface. Could you shed some light on the reasoning behind that? Yes, I can, Dan. Here's the way this works, and what Dan's talking about is something that's called bulge and roll. So right here, you can see this has a surface like this. And when you look at it like that, what you can see is that it's not flat across. It has a roll to it. And the reason why is that when you hit a ball out on the toe, what happens to the club head is it pivots. And so when it pivots, it creates sort of a topspin. So what they do is they make the toe lean back or stay back behind the center of the face, so it directs the ball to the right more, and it will allow for the ball to have the same curve to it, but instead of it starting dead straight, it'll start to the right and then it will curve. So if you hit a ball on the inside part here, instead of it starting more down the line and then slicing, it will start more to the left and then slice, and that's the purpose of that bulge and roll right there. All right, it used to be a little bit more prevalent back in the time when we were using woods instead of using metal woods. They were made of woods. They were made of wood, and excuse me, what would happen is they didn't have the gear effect. What it's called is gear effect. They didn't have the gear effect that these clubs have now, because you could do much more. All right, Dan. Hope that helps. This is Bob in Titusville, Florida. Does the PGA or USGA have strict mandates for the lofts of all the manufacturers' golf clubs? If all the clubs made by all the different companies had to have a standard loft for each iron, wouldn't that then make the pros be more equal in their distances and rely more on the skill level of the pro? Kind of a tough one there, because there's a number of things that are involved in distance with the irons. One of them is loft. That's an absolute fact. That's why the loft on your pitching wedge, which originally, and again, this is 30 years ago, the loft on this club was about 50 degrees. Now it's about 46. What has happened and what caused that change in lofts was perimeter weighting. The reason why they don't have strict mandates on that is because you can do other things with the lofts of clubs, and it really doesn't matter how far you hit your pitching wedge. I mean, some people think that it's an advantage to hit a pitching wedge 165 yards or whatever it is. It's really not that. Some people like to have the shafts of the club longer or shorter, and the length of the shaft will have a lot to do with how far the ball goes, not just the loft of the club. So they don't really have any strict guidelines. Manufacturers are changing that stuff as they go along to try to get the ball to go farther. Let's face it, if you step up and you grab a pitching wedge out of one company and you grab a pitching wedge of another company and that pitching wedge from the other company, that ball goes farther, it's probably a selling point and you might just buy that club. But you're right, the loft has probably been decreased so that it's more like a 9-iron or an 8-iron even. All right, hope that helps you there. Next one, this is Chan in Malaysia. How cool is that? On Facebook. I need help with my putting. I sometimes have problems judging how far I should pull back. Sometimes if I pull back too much, I tend to decelerate through the putt. And if I go for a short backswing and accelerate through the putt, I tend to pull it. Do you have any drills for me? Yeah. Okay. So in putting, so much of this is a personal thing. What I would try to tell you is that what you want to do initially when you do this, Chan, is you want to set up this little game where you find out how far the ball is going to go. All right, so you set up a little 3-ball thing. What I try to do here is what I teach with the distance that the putter should move is the backswing is 1 and the follow through is 1.5. So if I take it back 5 inches, I want to follow through 7.5. Now this is just a guess, but this will give you an idea of how it works. So it's 1 to 1.5. So when I set up and I take this putter back, I'm going to take it back to about this ball here, and I'm going to follow through to there. And what we're going to do is we're just going to try to get a rhythm to this. So it's going to be a 1, 2. So I'm going to go like this, 1, 2, and it's okay if you watch the ball. Watch the putter head here, all right? So we're going to go 1, 2. And what's going to happen is you're going to see that the ball is going to start to go similar distances, all right? 1, 2. And that ball is going to go a similar distance. And after you've done that drill for a little while, you'll get an idea. You're programming your brain. It's just like putting information into a computer. You're downloading the information into your brain so that your brain, after a while, realizes, okay, you know what? If I go 5 and 7.5, the ball's going to end up going 5 feet or whatever it is. And you just keep doing that drill and doing that drill and doing that drill. And that will assist you with getting the distance the way you want it to be, which is consistent. That will also take care of the decelerating or the closing of the club face, because when you start to decelerate, when you come into the putt, the face can open and close. Most times, however, when people decelerate, they pull, because what happens is because you're coming in and you're slowing, you tend to slow the heel and the club face will tend to shut. That's most typically what happens. Not all the time, but a large percentage of the time. So when you do this drill where you're taking the putter and you're moving it properly, what I call properly, which is 1 to 1.5, what you're going to find is that there's an acceleration that goes through there, and as you accelerate through, the putter face will tend to be square. If I go 1 to 1, that can kind of decelerate. We want to have a little bit more follow through than we have backswing. All right, Chan, I hope that helps. All right. This one comes from Rob in Santa Barbara, California. I thought I'd share a head game I've started using to help me keep my cool. Before I start a round, I circle the par values of all the holes on which I get a stroke. Then when I make 2 or 3 bogeys in a row, I'm not so frustrated when I realize that I'm supposed to get bogeys on them. That helps me keep my cool and play on. And Rob, this is a very, very good thing. And what I would recommend to anybody is you always want to come up with little games within the game to try to make sure that you keep your mind on what you're attempting to do there. So what Rob's saying is if he's a 5 handicap, on the 5 hardest holes, he's expecting to make a bogey, so he doesn't put any pressure on himself. It's almost like relaxing his mind or relaxing when he stands onto that hole saying, okay, I know this is a par 4, but this is the hardest par 4 on the golf course. So what happens is that he's able to make a 5 here because he's supposed to, because he gets a stroke on that hole. And I would suggest that that's a great idea. However, what I would encourage you to do, and this is for all of you out there, is occasionally, if you play the white tees all the time, and you're, say, a 10 handicap, occasionally go up and play the red tees. I do this with a lot of my juniors who are playing college golf. What I have them do is I have them play the red tees so they get comfortable making a lot of birdies, shooting low scores, because a lot of that stuff is in your mind. So when you go out onto the golf course and you're a 10 handicap, what I want you to do is maybe go up to the red tees and see if we're only going to give you 8 strokes and see if you can start to shoot some low scores. And what that will do is that will get you to get your mind a little bit lower. That will raise your expectation level and ultimately shoot lower scores. All right, 2 of those means it's time for me to run. I want to remind everybody, again, you can catch us on the Golf Channel every Monday night, 8 o'clock and 11 o'clock Eastern. The Golf Fix, thanks so much for watching Golf Fix Extra. We'll see you next week. Tune in to Golf Channel Monday nights at 8 Eastern and get your game fixed.